Venezuela's economy is on the verge of crumbling. Its GDP shrank by 30% in 2020, and its public debt grew by 214% against its GDP in 2021. Venezuela is currently categorized as a very high-risk nation and ranked last out of the 153 nations in Global Data's Country Risk Index. If things continue like this, Venezuela will possibly collapse by 2024. Also, about 8 other countries are on the verge of collapse. What are the countries that risk being forgotten soon? Welcome to Jet Setter Journals, where we discuss everything about the nations of the world. Number 1. Venezuela. Venezuela is a country in South America that has been going through many problems for a long time. One of the problems is hyperinflation, which means that Venezuela's currency keeps losing its value, and people need more money to get petty things. According to the Central Bank of Venezuela, the annual consumer price inflation reached a peak of 155.8% in October 2022, one of the highest rates across the globe, and it is currently at an all-time record of 161.3% in 2023. Another problem confronting the country is political turmoil and social unrest. Many people are dissatisfied and upset about the situation, which has sparked public protests and rioting. Because of the crisis, many countries have ceased or curtailed their trade and collaboration with Venezuela, leaving the country's economy weak and impoverished. Its GDP fell by 30% in 2020, while its public debt increased to 214% in 2021. The country relies primarily on selling oil to other countries, but this has also become challenging for various reasons. Venezuelans are currently experiencing hardships and struggling to survive. Many have left the country in search of a better quality of life elsewhere, but what becomes of those left behind? Number 2. Yemen. Yemen is a country in the Middle East suffering from one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. This crisis was caused by a civil war that started in 2014 between two groups, the Houthi rebels and the government of President Abdurabu Mansour Hadi. The Houthi rebels are Shia Muslims who felt oppressed by the Sunni government and took over the capital city of Sana'a and other parts of northern Yemen. The civil war killed over 230,000 people and forced over 4 million to seek refuge in other countries. More than 20 million people in Yemen need help to survive as they face hunger, disease, and violence. The country is on the verge of collapsing as its GDP keeps decreasing and the public debt escalates. The country is also dealing with famine that affects about 16 million people and a cholera outbreak that has infected over 2 million people. The war has no clear end in sight as peace talks have failed to bring a lasting solution. Every attempt by the UN and other humanitarian organizations to deliver aid to needy people fails, since every main entry into the country is under attack by the government forces and their allies. The ongoing tragic war in Yemen needs urgent intervention. If not, the country risks collapsing at any moment. Number 3. Lebanon. Lebanon is a country in the Mediterranean region undergoing a catastrophic economic and political crisis. The crisis started in 2019 when people realized banks were running out of US dollars to pay for imports and keep the Lebanese pound stable. The banks had been offering very high interest rates to attract dollars, but this was not sustainable and created a huge debt. The crisis worsened in 2020 when a huge explosion in the port of Beirut killed more than 200 people, injured more than 7,000 and destroyed several properties. A large stockpile of ammonium nitrate that had been stored unsafely for years triggered the catastrophic explosion. The citizens blamed the government for its negligence and corruption and kept protesting until the government resigned. But ever since, a new government or leader has not been elected because of political disagreements. The COVID-19 pandemic also contributed its quota to the existing crisis, which reduced tourism and trade, coupled with some US-led sanctions on some Lebanese politicians and groups, such as Hezbollah. The crisis has made life very hard for the Lebanese, causing more than 80% of its population to flee from the country. The Lebanese pound has lost over 90% of its value since 2019. Many have lost their jobs and entire life savings, and many have left the country. There is also a shortage of basic things like food, water, electricity, medications, and fuel. Many people also suffer from health problems, mental stress, and insecurity. According to the World Bank, Lebanon's crisis is one of the worst in history, and if not curtailed, could lead to more severe violence and possibly the destruction of the country. Number 4. Syria. Syria has been suffering from a violent conflict for more than a decade. The conflict began in 2011 when some people protested against the government and demanded more freedom and democracy. The government responded with force, and soon the country was divided into different factions fighting each other. Many have lost their homes and belongings and have had to move elsewhere for safety. The conflict has also affected the economy of Syria. The country's production and income have gone down significantly, coupled with an ever-increasing debt rate. The country also faces a severe shortage of food, water, and other basic amenities. More than 13 million people, including 6 million children, need help to survive and cope with the situation. The United States and the European Union have also imposed sanctions on Syria, making it difficult for Syria to train and obtain funds from other countries. This begs the question, how long will a country continue in this state? Sooner or later, such a country will collapse. Number 5. Zimbabwe. Right on the list is also Zimbabwe, a country in Africa that has been facing a huge crisis for a while. We've got poor governance, inflation, and devaluation of the currency at the core front of this crisis. The country hasn't ceased encountering natural disasters, such as droughts making it hard to grow crops. These problems have made Zimbabwe's economy very weak and unstable. Zimbabwe's economy shrank by 8% in 2020, producing less than before. Zimbabwe's economy depends largely on agriculture and mining, which are the main things it exports to other countries. Unfavorable weather, disease, and pests have greatly affected these activities. Aside from that, political instability persists. Violent crime and house invasions are all prevalent. The citizens practically live in fear. The local police lack the resources to respond effectively and curb criminal acts. Number 6. Afghanistan. This Asian country has been plagued by war, violence, instability, and poverty for over 4 decades, and its economy is crumbling down at an alarming pace. The country is also facing a security threat from the Taliban, who have gained ground since the withdrawal of US troops in August 2021. The social unrest has left over a third of its population impoverished and sick. The country relies on foreign aid, which accounts for over 40% of its budget. Unfortunately, this has drastically reduced due to the Taliban takeover. It shouldn't be a surprise if the country falls apart by 2024. Number 7. Sudan. Sudan has been going through a roller coaster of political and economic changes. In April 2019, the people of Sudan rose against President Omar al-Bashir, who had authoritatively ruled the country for almost 30 years. He was accused of corruption, human rights violations, and war crimes. The military removed him from power and took over the government. This was the start of a political transition that aimed to bring democracy and peace to Sudan. Unfortunately, the contrary is what we have there today. However, the transition has not been easy. The military and the civilians have been struggling to share power and agree on how to run the country. They signed a deal in August 2019 that created a joint civilian-military council and a cabinet of ministers. They also agreed to hold elections in 3 years and form a parliament that would represent all the different groups in Sudan. But the parliament has not been formed yet, and many people are worried that the military might try to keep control of the country. Sudan is currently grappling with a range of economic and humanitarian challenges, including the burden of low oil prices and US sanctions that are significantly impacting its economy. Moreover, the country's public debt has soared to an alarming 212% of its gross domestic product, GDP, as of 2021. The population continues to endure the adverse effects of high inflation, low incomes, scarcity of fuel and food, and inadequate access to essential services. Additionally, Ironically, Sudan finds itself in a substantial debt owed to various entities. Sudan also has a long history of violence and conflict. The lack of peace has led to the demise of millions of people and displaced millions more. Ironically, Sudan has the potential to become a stable and prosperous country, but it needs more peace, stability, and reforms to make its transition successful. If not, the country risks being swallowed up by the ongoing crisis. Number 8. Haiti. You probably never thought that one of the world's top-rated tourist destinations would be on the list. I'm sorry, beauty doesn't pay the bills. Haiti in the Caribbean Sea has many problems. It is one of the poorest countries in the world, and many people do not have enough food or water to survive each day and lack access to healthcare or education. Haiti has a high record of violence, crime, and corruption, which makes it hard for the government to work well and help the people. Haiti has also suffered many natural disasters, such as hurricanes, floods, and earthquakes that have destroyed homes, roads, and crops. In 2020, the economy of Haiti got worse because of the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2021, a political crisis occurred when someone murdered the president, Jovenel Moïse, and different groups tried to take control of the country. That same year, a big earthquake hit the country in August, causing the death of more than 2,000 people and injuring more than 12,000. The country is on the verge of collapse and might not survive the next 12 months. Number 9. North Korea. North Korea is situated on a piece of land that sticks out from Asia between two big seas. It shares borders with China and Russia on the north and South Korea on the south. North Korea does not engage in much dialogue or trade with other countries. It has a strict government that dictates what people should do and think. The government is run by a dictator that hardly deals with other countries. The country is also developing and testing extremely deadly weapons that can explode and inflict massive devastation. Other countries oppose North Korea's possession of these weapons. They try to deter them by refusing to help the country when in need. Unfortunately, the country lacks sufficient food for its citizens. There are times when the country faces terrible weather conditions that hamper its agricultural produce, yet they never seek help. If everything continues this way, the people will die of hunger, and the country will collapse. Over to you, viewers. Which other country do you think should be on the list? We'll wrap up today's video at this point. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and smash the subscribe button.